Hey folks, David Stewart here. So, how do we evangelize the normies? How do you get normies into cool stuff? This is a question I have, and I'm asking you because I don't necessarily have the answer. I know some of the problems, and I don't necessarily have the solutions. This is something that I said in a couple videos recently. I said part of winning the culture war is evangelizing the normies, meaning the normies are just members of the public, normal people that aren't that into internet culture or culture wars or things like that. They just want to consume media that they enjoy. They want to go to a movie and have a good time. They want to listen to music that they like. They want to play games that are fun. The members of the public, the mobs. So I don't have a solution for how you evangelize them just yet, but I wanted to pose the question directly to you. Here's some of the problems, is that in order to get somebody into something that, let's call it geeky, all right, to turn somebody into a geek. I know geek could be like a somewhat hateful term. In this case, I'm just saying things which are a little bit outside of the mainstream. A geek is somebody who's really into something, somebody who really enjoys a certain thing. So you could call me a metal geek. I'm really into heavy metal music. So for me to be able to get somebody to appreciate metal music, I probably shouldn't start with something that is specifically designed to be inaccessible. This is the problem with lots of things that are geeky, is that there's an accessibility barrier really by design. That's part of geek culture, is that not everything can be immediately accessed by members of the public. So if I wanted to get somebody into heavy metal, a really poor choice would be for me to have them listen to an Emperor album, or for me to have them listen to Cannibal Corpse, or really anything that features extremely strong brutal vocals or very harsh screaming. Why? Well, because harsh screaming is not something that, even though it's idiomatic to lots of different styles of metal, it's not something that most people are going to immediately hear and like. They're used to hearing normal melodic singing, so that changes the way that you approach trying to introduce somebody into a hobby or some form of media that's a little bit outside the norm. This is a problem. So if you look at lots of different things that are geeky, like Dungeons and Dragons, to get somebody into Dungeons and Dragons, you're like, let's play D&D, and you pull out a big, heavy rule book. They're going to be like, what are we doing here? Well, you have to imagine, you have to start somewhere a little bit simpler. And before D&D was in Wizards of the Coast, and I think they may have actually brought this back with a box kit. You used to get there used to be a box. You could get the Dungeons and Dragons box, and in it had essentially a simplified rules sheet to get normies into playing it, or just get somebody who's not that into role-playing games to be able to have fun playing the game. That's really the goal of this. So as we fracture off and we have lots of these different geeky interests and geeky hobbies, it's more and more difficult to get people actually evangelized into a particular kind of culture. Video games is another thing too, right? There's games that normal people enjoy, and then there's games that are, in some cases, seem to be specifically made for people that don't like things that are easily accessible. Think of like really hardcore strategy games, even something like StarCraft. StarCraft is a very popular game, but your average person is not going to hop into battle.net and have a very good time playing against other people because the skill cap gets so high. That's kind of what Hearthstone turned into. My wife, who I consider a normie, at least compared to me, she actually played Hearthstone back when it first came out, back when it was in beta and it was first launched. She played it, and she really enjoyed playing it for quite some time. It had a great sense of strategy that she could have fun with, and she liked collecting the cards and building decks and talking to me about what kind of things she was trying in the game. But that interest fell away as the game was expanded and became more geared towards a hardcore esports kind of player base and audience. She just ended up checking out of it. I bring that up as an example because those barriers to entry are actually kind of part of geek culture. The whole point of somebody being a metalhead is that not everyone listens to metal, and not everyone is even capable of tolerating some metal. If you listen to something like Emperor and you're actually able to get what's going on in Emperor's music, it's a little bit like an elitist thing. And in fact, I tend to have a little bit of an itch, and I'm trying to be better about this because I tend to be an elitist when it comes to metal or just anything I like, whether it's RPGs or it's metal or it's books or something, fantasy books. What I tend to do is somebody says, hey, this is really cool. Here's this band I heard about called Baby Metal. And, the little voice in my head is like, you need to rip them apart for being a noob, but what I should do instead of saying, well, Baby Metal's kind of stupid garbage and you should listen to Pantera or, whatever it is, say, well, if you like that, what you might like is Dragon Force. You might like these power metal bands that are really melodic, and then let them hear something that is really accessible and also very impressive, because it's part accessibility, part something unique and impressive if you actually want to get somebody to like the thing that you're liking. And then they might enjoy liking power metal, and if they listen to power metal, they might enjoy liking thrash and maybe some different kinds of metal, and maybe eventually they'll listen to something that's a little more extreme. Something like death metal's almost intended to not have regular people be able to listen to it. And that's something that you have to acknowledge with the deeper parts of subcultures. Something like a Warhammer fantasy role-playing game requires a big monetary upfront investment, and it's also complicated, so normies aren't going to get into it. A lot of wargaming is that way. Same thing with, or this is actually doesn't have to be the case with Dungeons and Dragons, but I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons is that way. Same thing with other RPGs that are a little bit deeper than that, is that they tend to have a big investment in terms of time to figure out how to use them before you can really enjoy having a good time with them. So anyway, I present that question to you. How do you propose we do it? I think there's lots of different thoughts, but the whole point is to get people to stop consuming nothing but what's presented in front of them, because I think that tends to be the go-to for, quote, normies. And I know that this may sound somewhat insulting to call people normies or call them mops or something like that. I don't have better terms except to try to divide these categories. So if you feel insulted, I really do apologize. That's not the intent of this. The intent is, how do you get people to like different things? I've been getting a lot of questions. Where do I start as a reader? I made a video quite a while back called Where to Start in Fantasy. What kind of fantasy book should you start with? And that's something that I've thought about, is rather than just trying to target people who are already really into fantasy, we should get more people reading fantasy, because it's a great genre and there's so much there to enjoy. And a lot of times people who are just kind of channeled through the mainstream, as so many of us aren't aware that they're really attracted to fantasy themes. They aren't aware when they watch Star Wars and love it that they really like fantasy elements and would like them in other things as well. So that's something that is definitely pressing on my mind. Leave me your thoughts down below, because when I think about, there's lots of different things: science fiction, gaming, music, whatever it's going to be. How do you actually get somebody who is not familiar with these things to at least be able to have a basic appreciation of them on some level? How do you get them to like something outside of whatever's put in front of them? I don't have all the answers, so give me some of your thoughts and answers, and I'll try to compile some more content to this direction in the future. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, I write books, and you can find my books linked down below. You can find them all on Amazon if you want. The newest one is called Voices of the Void. It comes out on the 23rd, so you are probably watching this I'm recording it a day early, so it comes out in a couple days on Tuesday. You could pre-order it for 99 cents, get the ebook, and of course the print book will be available too if you want to buy that. I do appreciate you guys watching and giving me so many comments and such good feedback for the last few videos regarding some of these topics. So I'll see you guys next time.